see me and I see you. Yep.
Beautiful.
Morning. Happy post long weekend.
August.
We're into August.
It is.
You have a good long weekend?
I did. Birthdays. That's what
Whose birthday? Kids?
My daughter turned 9.
Okay.
So, birthdays and just hanging out. You?
I'm going to turn my chair so I'm more.
My wife was gone. She was at Ed Sheeran. So
yeah, you mentioned that was in Seattle, and my daughters were in Seattle at Megan Maroney, which is popular country artist.
Fun.
If you're deep into country, then you know who Megan Maroney is. If you're not deep into country, then you don't know Megan Maroney. I only know the name because my girls they're all into it. Big into her, actually. Yeah.
Good.
So I've just pulled up the our monthly data now is in through all of July through the Fraser Valley board.
Yep.
And we're kind of tracking along where we've been and where we've thought we've been. Nothing's really changed. So year over year, July to July, last July, we had 1,175 transactions.
Yep.
This July, we have 1,090. So we are down year over year. What does that work out to?
7%.
Yeah, 7-8%, something like that. Month over month, if we compare July to June, we're down slightly less. June was 1,136. And again, we're down to 1,090. So just a few percent.
In that same thing, can you see what the June of last year was? Like, is it?
I can easily grab it. It's not. Well, here, let's go. I wonder if it's totally
the same drop between June and July as what we had last year.
I will have it here in one moment.
By going into the stats center in Paragon that everybody has access to?
That's right.
Fraser Valley Connect, right?
Connect is you go Connect and then stats center.
Right.
And then you have it. So sales in June. Oh, I got to go all property types. There we go. So June of 2025 was 1,132. July. So this is always interesting to me. We go into the stats center and it doesn't totally align with what we get on Paragon. I don't know why the numbers aren't identical. They seem to. So right now on Paragon.
Can Fraser Valley Connect show off market deals? Can it track off market deals?
No, but I think what happens is you know how sometimes imagine you've got a subject to sale where the deal is done in June.
Yep.
But like, let's say the deal only firms up in August or July or whatever. So when you look at data, like right now, we're showing for July of 2026, we're showing 1,090 transactions. It's possible that number is going to go up because there's still yet for deals to firm up and report.
Is it firm when it's considered a deal?
It doesn't report until it's firm, but it uses contract date. So there could be pending transactions out there right now where the contract date is in the month of July, but it hasn't reported yet because it needs more time to report.
Sure.
So it's a bit convoluted, but all that to say that the numbers are never totally aligned, but
they're still relevant for like how much was up and down.
Yeah. Right? So if we look at June and July last year, to your point, June was 1,132.
Yep.
July was 1,103.
So
so
a drop.
But a slight drop, like a percent or whatever that is. And then if we look at June this year, it's showing that there again is a slight percentage.
Is it around the same amount?
It's slightly more this year.
Sure.
Like the numbers I just said were June 2026, 1,136. And then July 2026, 1,090. So I would suggest that's like
that's
a few percent more of a drop. It's typical in any year to have a drop in July from June.
Yeah.
Like that's totally normal.
I was just curious if they correlated, like if they were roughly the same this year.
I think what we've had now for quite some time, years, in fact, is, we're tracking towards averaging roughly 1,000 sales a month throughout the year, right? In January, February, March, we're below the 1,000 a month number. April, May, June, maybe even July and a few other months we pop a little bit above. And then, there will be some fall months like November, December, where we are below. And then when you average it all out, we're tracking around 12,000 sales in a year. So we have remarkable consistency in terms of the number of transactions. Something that continues, well, two things. There's a lot of dialogue that came out of our last podcast we recently did, where we talked a lot about subject to sales. And I referenced, like, I've made the statement now, in that podcast and previously, saying that, one of the reasons why we have the sales numbers we have is because we are somewhat responsible for those numbers, in that we're getting stuck. We're not finding ways to make subject to sales work at a higher rate than they currently are. Yeah. And a lot of that is it's a mindset shift. It's new skills for a lot of people, because they haven't had to navigate this. Like in the last decade, we really have not had an environment where subject to sales, they were laughed about for a long period of time, right? So I think that, if we shifted our mindset, developed some new skills, rather than tracking at an average of 1,000 transactions a month, we could have another 10 or 20%. Like it's not that there aren't people out there who are wanting to transact. In fact, if you just randomly phoned a bunch of people with listings right now, you would get a combination of comments like, well, yeah, we worked on a subject to sale, but it didn't work out. Or we could have people write subject to sale offers, but we told them no for whatever reason. They just didn't want to work with the subject to sale offers. And so what that tells me is that,
is that on the agent end or the client end, do you think?
Both. It would be, some of it would be sellers, or just, again, because we've trained ourselves over the last decade to say, you don't do a transaction this way. But, I had an interesting conversation with Gary Dirksen, actually, who's been around for as long as anyone else. Yep. And Gary listened to the entirety of last week's podcast and, pulled me aside and said he really appreciated it. Then he started to tell stories about how at different times in his career, subject to sale was the way the majority of things were done in slower markets. So it's a real learning curve and shift for people who've been licensed for 10 years or less. And it's not to say that that is the optimal way. Of course, the optimal way is to not to have to deal with that. But when we're in an environment where consumers are stuck because a lot of them go, well, I would move, I want to move, but I'm not willing to list my home and potentially be homeless because I only see that one option that I want to move to. It's navigating that scenario well and seeing it through to success can take not just weeks, but months to write offers that are structured completely differently, giving protection to both sides. And then of course, ultimately having everything priced appropriately so that it does still sell.
Are you, with regards to the subject sale, like we talked about it last week, but I don't remember asking this specifically, but do you struggle selling the idea of the subject to sale to the listing agent? Like, have you run into scenarios? I was trying to think like from both sides, because as the listing agent, it's kind of hard to encourage someone to write a subject to sale. It's not like you're going out there saying, we'll take subject to sale offers because it's whatever. But on the other foot, is it a struggle talking to the listing agent?
It certainly can be. It just depends who you run into. And so much depends on what has been the conversation between that listing agent and their client. What are their expectations? What are they prepared for? What are they trying to do? And what's the framework in their mind as to how they plan on accomplishing their goal? And so if from the start, like the real challenge we're in right now is we've come out of this long season, years and years of having trained ourselves to think, in most circumstances, you just don't entertain a subject to sale offer. You don't need to. Demand is strong enough that you wait for a buyer who doesn't have to do that. But enough of the marketplace right now has been slowed down by the fact that a lot of people who would move, who are, they're going to be sellers, right? But as they think through their potential move, they're a buyer first, and they're only willing to buy if the circumstances are right from their perspective. And from their perspective, what that means for a lot of people now is, well, I want to know that there's something else something out there that I want to buy. I need to see it and touch it and feel it. And then I'm willing to hit go on the whole process. So that's backwards of what we've trained ourselves to do. And quite frankly, we didn't need to do it this way for a long time. But if we care about freeing up the marketplace and getting from, 1,000 or 1,100 transactions a month to 13 and 1,400, this may very well be one of the things that unlocks us. And there are ways to do that, which is what we, discussed at length last week. And so I think it's, this isn't something that's easy where you just, flip a switch and go, okay, well, now we got to figure it out and away we go. It's each individual agent interacting with all of their clients, reshaping first in their minds and in their clients' minds, the way this could end up going. And, it draws the entire relationship and sale process in a market like this gets drawn out over a much longer period of time. You can journey with a client for months and months and months versus, what used to be weeks or maybe a month at the most before everything is done. And I'm living it, as well. I'm doing this with clients. I just had a subject removal on the weekend where, it was exactly this type of scenario where the only way to make something work was to go about it the backwards way, right? We found this property and we wanted it. And then we wrote a subject sale offer and negotiated a month of protection without being bumped. There was no way to bump us for a month, and then list their home and get to market and navigate that. And there was all kinds of challenges that came along the way that we had to overcome while protecting all clients at all times of not being homeless, right?
In a scenario like that, though, like I'm just thinking back through the years of training that we've done, and this is going way back, like even 20 years ago when I started. Ray's big thing has always been, I remember him talking about training your client to list first, then buy.
Yes.
List first, then buy.
Yes.
So I'm curious in the market now, because I assume you still would be wanting to have that conversation, but what happens with the seller where they don't, that's just not going to happen and you have to go subject to sale?
We're talking about so let me just say this, we're talking about a subsection of the market when we're having this conversation.
Are we talking just like single family?
We're talking about there are still lots of people out there where they just need to sell for whatever reason. And the mindset should be list first. And sometimes it's just list first and we're only selling.
Sure.
Right. Maybe that's an investment property. Maybe there's been something that's gone on in their family that's provoking this change, or personal life or job or whatever.
Right.
That still remains true. And I still believe that if you want to move and you can see a path where this makes sense, it does make sense to sell first and then buy. But there are challenges that come with that process too, right? Like we all know that if, depending on what you're looking for, what you're trying to buy into.
Those challenges new though? Those challenges, it's not different in this market, is it? Because isn't it the same, like your challenges?
It's the same, but so this gets into, now we bleed into kind of what we wanted to talk about this week, is that there's a sentiment out there right now that although inventory is high, so there's thoughts and comments and, people out there going, well, inventory's high. So if inventory's high, why don't we have more transactions?
Right.
Why don't we have more people unlocked able to do this?
Yes.
And I can only I don't know if this is scientific. I haven't, extrapolated the data, but, from my bird's eye view, I think that part of our problem is yes, inventory is high, but a lot of the inventory that we have right now is
priced incorrectly, or
it's product that we talked about this last week, so I'm going to sound like I'm repeating myself, but it's product that was purchased in that 2022 and 2023 moment. And that product is back on the market for, let's say, one of a few reasons. Like maybe the mortgage renewal's up and they don't like the mortgage renewal. They feel like they overpaid at the time, or they certainly bought at peak values. They're, to whatever degree, they're underwater today and they're trying to escape and get out. But the ship has sailed. Like they can't get out and recover their cost. So there's a glut of inventory on the market. that is not actually saleable.
Sure.
It's not real inventory.
Yep.
Nobody's buying it. Nobody's going to pay you anywhere around what you paid in 2022.
How does that change though with those particular listings? Like, are we talking like?
So
Yeah.
I'll just throw numbers to it. Like it could be something as simple as this. So right now we say I don't even know what there is. Is there 9,000 places for sale or
Right. It's
something like that, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
We could be in a scenario where as many as like 40% of those are not actually saleable.
Yeah.
So do we actually have 9,000 listings or do we have 5,000 listings? And if we have 5,000 listings, that's actually like real listings. That's actually not a lot of inventory. And then when you layer that over top of all of the other challenges we're facing practically, like, challenges in lending and getting approval, like the lending environment right now is very, very difficult.
Oh, okay.
I've firsthand experience going through it with some buyers recently in two different circumstances. And, these are people that are, these are not bad credit, no income kind of people, but lenders and underwriting, they're looking at things very, very differently and very hard right now. And so you combine that.
Sure.
And then you go, well, there maybe isn't as much inventory as we think there is. We're being told there's a lot of inventory, but if a large portion of the inventory is not saleable and it's not real inventory, then we don't have a ton to choose from. And then that's what I think leads to consumers going, I want to move, but I'm only going to move if I know what can buy. I can see it.
Yep.
I'm not going on faith. And there's another big piece here. When they go the subject to sale route, they can, know what they're buying. They can have a negotiated price, right, at that point. And now, they still don't know what they've sold for. But then when they do sell in a subject to sale situation, all of the major pieces have been put together at the same time and there's no unknowns. When you sell first, and this is a major hang up for people right now. So like, let's say you do the sell first option, which I still think is the best option. Yep. But when you do the sell first option, you sell. So you know what you're getting on your sale. You know how much money you have, but you haven't yet negotiated a deal. You don't know, number one, what you can buy and what you can buy it for.
Yep.
And when everything is very, very tight and hard, that's a difficult leap for some people to make. For some people, they need to have it all in front of them before they commit. They need to see the entire picture. And the only way to have the entire picture is to go subject to sale. And then, of course, the last piece is the negotiation on the sale of your home. Lenders actually, even in many circumstances, will, they'll only look like the lending world has changed. Like the world of like pre-approvals, like that's done and gone. Like I know people will say, we've got a pre-approval for this person, but a true pre-approval, like you can't know that you can buy something until the lender has actually
all the stuff.
Held a contract, looked at the property, and then they'll run it. They will do virtually no work. The only thing that's happening right now in a pre-approval process is the broker or whoever you're dealing with can take some basic information like, your income statements or whatever. But in many cases, credit isn't pulled.
No. Yep.
And so if credit's not pulled, there could be
part
some things that the consumer is forgetting about.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a surprise down the road that you didn't, and you're like, oh yeah, we forgot we have that car loan, or we never paid off that credit card or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, for all of these reasons, like that's why the market is stuck on an average of 1,000 transactions a month. But we can get it beyond that if we develop the skills and abilities to walk people through what is a far slower path, but it is a path to success. And there's people doing it right now. And I just finished one off this weekend that took me months to, like, literally from the time we started the process and then, wrote the offer and locked the property down and had protection for a month from the time we wrote, then got the place listed, navigated that, got through it successfully. But there was trip ups in that process too, but we walked it all the way out.
Was this a scenario where they were listing and buying?
Yeah.
And did you have to deal with a subject sale on the list?
You mean on the
sale of their property?
No. And I mean, so, that, of course, if you walk this logic out and say, well, if everybody expected to do subject to sales all along the way, you eventually get completely bogged down.
Which you had. I mean, we talked about this last week.
I did a 4-step one. Yeah. About a month
how's that conversation between you and the selling agent though? I know we talked a little bit about what your strategy is when you go into that, but I'm curious because we went through such a long time where even the list first buy after was simple to do through like 21, 22. It wasn't.
Well, let's go back to 21 and 22. Not. People weren't list first buying. They were buy first, then sell. They were because they were so confident in the saleability of their home because of the state of the market. It was the opposite. People were buying, even though many of them were not in a financial place where they could actually hold two properties, because our absorption rates were 95% or whatever. Right. That's what they were doing. The last time we've been in an environment where you could say it was not heavily skewed one way or the other, you got to actually go back. I mean, there was a brief moment in 2019 where the market kind of softened, but even then it wasn't what it is today. You got to go back to like 2013, 2014.
Yep.
To have something even remotely close to what we have today. So, so in answer to your question, like, with this one circumstance I'm referring to where, you could say, well, you're trying to have your cake and eat it too, right? You're writing a subject to sale offer, locking the property up to give yourself time to sell what you need to sell. And then when you go to market, can we take a subject to sale offer? No. With the exception that, did we need to? Well, no, because when you're in that,
why do you say no?
Well, because to do this well, you have to, if you don't want to sell first and take the risk of buying after, then your mindset needs to be, okay, we're not doing that, but then there's some things we have to give up here. So the thing that we're going to give up is, should we lock the right property down? We have to be so confident that we're going to market with our property at the right saleable number. Everything needs to be done properly, right? It needs to show great, smell great, price great. And then what happens? Well, in this particular circumstance, we had a ton of interest and we sold it within, we had an offer within a week and it was all done within, 2.5, 3 weeks kind of thing from, getting all the subject removal and everything done, right?
Single family residence, or?
It was a single family residence. So, all of these things have to be weighed with what, in real time, you got to be going well, what are we trying to buy? What are we trying to sell? And what's the best strategy based on, what's that inventory like in the market and how much demand is there? So, this circumstance worked well because we were buying an acreage, which, the acreage market is slow. So that provided the great opportunity to be subject to sale, right? And then we were selling a relatively inexpensive single family residence, of which, is there a lot of inventory? Sure. Yes, there's a lot of inventory. But again, when you look deep at the inventory, you go, well, a lot of it's garbage, right? And so we were going to look phenomenal when we went to market, and we did, and we successfully sold. And we didn't need to entertain subject to sale offers, nor was that our intent given the circumstances. Now, that's not to say that we didn't have a lot of people come through who would have wanted to buy it subject to sale. Like in total, we probably had 15, 16 showings. And I'm willing to bet that at least half of them needed to sell something first.
Are they asking you that? Is that a conversation that the agents are having?
Sure. People get this all the time. When you bring a property to market and it's priced well and it looks good, you get the interest. And, as agents, we are then we're wanting the feedback. We're wanting to talk to the agents who've been through, and you find out in time, you realize quite quickly how many people are actually out there who have something to sell first.
Right.
Depends greatly on what that product is. If you're selling an age restricted, if you're talking about age restricted condos, do people oftentimes have something to sell to go to an age restricted condo? Not usually. It's a little bit less common. But if you're talking about a $900,000 or $1.3 million home, is there something to sell? I would say generally yes, because that type of buyer tends to be a move-up buyer coming from something else, right? Does that make sense? So there's a lot of variables here, and it depends on, what is it that someone's trying to buy, and then what do they have to sell, and what's that product like to sell into the market right now? If you're I'll give a challenging example. The condo market right now is just extremely tough, right? And a lot of our inventory has been pumped up by all of these new pre-sale condos that have now been dumped onto the market, either by developers who had extra inventory that they lost deals on or were never able to sell, or the people who bought these things and were forced to completed, and now they're just trying to get rid of them, right? So there's so much of that inventory on the market. So if you've got a condo to sell because you got somebody who wants to sell a condo and buy something else, you've got to be really sure on what is the saleability of that condo and at what price, like who's buying it and where are condos actually moving. And I would say that's tricky right now. It's not easy because there's a lot to compete against. And then we've seen recently some of that new product, prices have been coming down either by developers finally going like, I got to get rid of this. I'm slashing numbers, or I'm offering crazy discounts or cashbacks, or, I saw one condo complex where they had leftover storage lockers and parking spots, and they were throwing in just like a ton of parking spots with units.
Is the condo market still that bad with like older buildings? Like, because they wouldn't be competing so much with those ones.
Well, it's not. It's just that everything adjusts accordingly. So, there's just more downward price pressure on all of the product. And then you got to think when you're selling a condo, depending on what the condo is, like, if it's a older building, like let's say a 90s building, and in a good complex, in a good neighborhood, it doesn't really matter if we're talking Langley, Surrey, Abbotsford. But if it's one of those and it's large square footage, oftentimes those sell to a different type of end user than something that's new and white and gray and clean and modern, but small, right? Yep. So that's different too, because you got to know, like, who am I likely selling to? Who's the buyer? And then where are they coming from? And what are they likely to want to pay given everything that's moving in the environment right now? And generally speaking, I would say like the condo market, the numbers have to be sharper than what one would think. Evidenced by the fact that, very little of the inventory is moving. But that being said, when something's priced right and it's good value in a good building, it still goes very, very quickly.
Like the listing that you had where you came out and priced it sharp.
The house you're talking about.
The house, yeah. If you go one step backwards to if you were repping the buyer that was looking for something like yours, so you're not with that person anymore, are you still having conversations with them though that, hey, this listing, you just can't buy it because you aren't willing to list first. You want to do a sale.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, that's one of the things that has to happen. If you're working with somebody and that's the path you're choosing to be subject to sale.
Because you were just talking about the condo market. And if I look back at like when I was in my 20s and some of my friends who had those condos too, they had to sell. They couldn't go and buy a house without selling it.
Yeah.
But in a market where the condo market is saturated and then something comes up like yours that's priced well, and it's a good stepping, next step up.
So all of this, it just depends so heavily on, what are you selling? What are you trying to buy into? There's different markets going on in different segments. If I'm a single person right now, like let's say you're a single person or single-ish, maybe you have someone you live with, but like you don't have an established family with kids. Okay. That type of person in this environment, I would be strongly encouraging that individual to sell first, buy second. It is a potential second move, or having to rent for a period of time is less disruptive than it is for some other people who are in a different stage of life. And the best way to buy is still, showing up, your cash is in your hand, figuratively speaking. You don't have to sell, and you could take advantage of the best opportunities very, very quickly. I.e. the product that's priced right and everyone jumps on right away and doesn't sit around for months, right? But there's those that family with kids, need a particular school catchment or only moving for a certain reason or whatever it is. And they look at it and they go, you know what? We can't take the risk of being homeless or having to move twice. So this is the only way we can go about it. There might come a time again in our marketplace where this conversation becomes less relevant, right? Like things might shift and adjust and open up. Under all of this, or over all of this, you could say, is like what's impacting this is, consumer confidence, negativity in the world and in our marketplace. And so that has an impact too. If we had more optimism in the economy and more optimism overall, then, would some more people be willing to transact with taking on a little bit higher level of risk? Sure. But right now, people are in risk avoidance. They'll only do things if everything is clearly laid out in front of them. And it's our job to help them navigate that and to find the path to success. And for some people, the path to success is going about it this way that we're talking about. And it takes a totally different skill set and a different set of conversations and setting expectations differently in order to be able to navigate that. And, we have many agents in our world have not been here. And so this is a new thing for us to learn. And for some of us, it's relearning, right? Like for me, it's not that I haven't seen it before, but I haven't done it for a long, long time. And I got to relearn. And that can be the difference of, for an agent, if you just break it down, like you could have an extra handful of sales in a 12-month stretch, adopting some of these practices and changing the way we do things and view things. If you don't, that's okay. But it can happen. It totally can happen. So anyways, we're rehashing a little bit of the last week's conversation, but it's kind of related to, so something that's come up a lot is, you had brought it up to me. It's the, you can read some of it because I know you got it from some agents, but
buyers have more choice. Why aren't they buying?
Right. It's the concept of like, well, if we have so much inventory,
why isn't it just selling?
Yep. And that is a logical statement in, like, if you throw out all of the context, I think that can make sense. You go, well, there should be more sales. But for all the reasons we've just discussed, I mean, a large portion of our inventory is truly unsaleable. Because
do you think the agents know that when they go into the listing? Like when they take that listing, are they aware? So then there's
a ton of agents right now who have product listed and they absolutely know it's not saleable.
What's the benefit to them? Is it just a listing,
it's a chance at a sale, because if you don't list it, so the mindset is this, like, well, if I say no to this client, like if I truly say no and draw the line, do they punt me and go and list it with someone else? And then in listing it with someone else, does that person take a listing for 6 months, 12 months? Eventually, the market then shows the client reality. So the fear is that you're walking away from a business opportunity by not taking the listing. But there are consumers and agents alike. Like there are sellers out there right now. They absolutely know their product is not saleable. They know they're just hoping and wishing. But I also think there's some people where they will, once the market shows them that you're not going to get what you're asking, then they'll make the necessary reductions in time. Not everybody, like when you have to swallow a painful pill, if you believed that your condo was worth $550 and someone tells you, sorry, it's worth $450. Not everybody can go like, okay, it is what it is. Like sometimes, like I think the most skilled agents who understand how to communicate and use data and speak the truth and aren't afraid of hard conversations are able to have those conversations and bring product to market, price properly to start. Other times, you can have all the skills and abilities, but like there are some people that just say, well, I want to try this. And so that's why, we've got a lot of this inventory on the market, because there's a combination of all of these things. And in some circumstances, will the sellers eventually adjust in time? Maybe. In some circumstances, though, they won't. Like there's a lot of people out there right now who have places for sale and they will not sell at a number that the market will yield. It will not sell. And so that is...
What's your conversation with those sellers then? Like when you're in that situation, what are you saying to that seller?
Well, I mean, I don't like myself personally, like if somebody has just a ludicrous thought, and maybe I mean that, I shouldn't say ludicrous. I mean that respectfully. Like there are circumstances right now where people just don't know, like they need to sell and they think it's worth X.
Yep.
And then you crush them with the Y.
Because they don't know. They're used to whatever they want.
So you know, what do I say? Well, I say the truth. I show them, you know, here is the data. Here's what is like, it's every layer of the conversation, right? Here's the environment. We're in an environment where, you know, around 10%, depending on the product, is selling month over month.
Yep.
We got 9 out of 10 homes don't sell. Well, why is that? Well, here's here's the story of where we've come from. Here's where we are today. Here's how prices have adjusted from peak values. Mm-hmm. And so in that situation, it's really helpful to go back and say, let's pretend like what was your home worth in the peak market of 2022? Let's have that conversation first. Let's establish
where they bought.
Let's establish what that number is, mm-hmm. right? Oh yeah, it was worth this big, beautiful number, right? So it was, but it isn't today. Yep. Well, how isn't it today? Well, let's look at the data points that have brought values down from here to here. It's mm-hmm. a combination of a number of sales. You can go back as far as you want. And then you can look in the most current market. You could say, well, let's see in the last 90 to 120 days, what has a consumer paid for something like your home in the last 90 to 120 days? All of these little pieces of information are going to put together the story, right? And it brings devastation and disappointment. It's hard. These are very hard conversations. Yeah, sure. People are crushed. And then even when you do all that, you can still have circumstances where people go, well, it just doesn't feel right. I have to try for this, right? And so there's a lot of that product on the market right now where maybe some of the right conversations have happened. I think in a lot of circumstances, not to the degree that they should have happened. Mm-hmm. But we've got product on the market that is not, in fact, saleable. And so that's what is leading to the comments of people saying, like, you know, if you see the media stories and, you know, you'll see the president of this or that, even stand up and say, people say things like, well, consumers have more choice than ever. And they can, everyone on the ground knows that that's not really a true statement. If we had 10,000 homes mm-hmm. that were all priced properly, would we have more than 1,000 transactions? Absolutely. We'd have 2,000 transactions. Yeah. There are people out there who want to transact. To move, They want to move, but they can't because we are in this really difficult place of, you know, a lot of our inventory is not in fact saleable and won't be saleable.
Are you comfortable having that conversation that you just explained to me, knowing that you may not get the listing? Like, would you walk away at the end of that if the client said, great, Andrew, thanks for the information, it makes sense, but we have to sell at this price? Are you still taking that listing? Are you walking away? Like, what would you?
So that depends.
I mean, I guess it depends on the person.
It depends. Yeah. So like, okay.
Would you though?
I don't want to, just ignoring my phone here. I don't like, there are different circumstances. It is not easy to say, this is the way you do it and this is the way everybody should do it.
Yep.
It's tough because, you know, you can think of a couple different, I'll use 2 examples. So like, let's say somebody in my life who's a longtime client who I've got tons of relationship with, they go, hey, we'd really like to sell this rental. I'll use an example, rental condo that we have. Yep. It came vacant. We'd like to get out of it now. We use the money for something else. Okay. So I go through all the conversations. The truth hurts. They thought it was worth X. It's worth Y. Mm-hmm. If that person who I've journeyed with for 10 years and I've helped them multiple times says to me, hey, Andrew, we want to try this number first.
Sure.
They're generally saying that in the context of, we want to try this first. And then if the market doesn't give it to us, we're going to adjust.
Yep.
Well, I might encourage them not to go that path, but I'm managing the entirety of the relationship here. And my messaging to those people is like, hey, I know that you trust me. I know that you know that I have your best interest in mind. I've laid out everything. And if this is the path you want to choose to try that, I can totally get behind that. Mm-hmm. And I will try, my actions will not change no matter what price we take to market. Versus if there's I don't know, let's say there's a new relationship. I don't know, let's just say I've done some advertising and somebody random calls me and they want to sell, you know, the exact same thing maybe I've got no history with them and it's the same type of product. And, I don't have the warmness in relationship. It's a colder relationship. It feels more transactional. I feel like I'm only there if I can get what they want.
Yes.
And if I don't get what they want, then, maybe they're not interested in listening to what I have to say. Well, there's those moments where I might say like, hey, like I'm feeling like I'm being asked to lie to you.
Right.
Like I'm telling you, this is the truth and you don't like the truth. And I totally understand that it's a crappy truth and, it's not fun, but you're telling me that you're only willing to sell for X. And I can guarantee you that we're not selling. Like that will not happen. It'll be an exercise in frustration. I'm going to call you weekly with bad news, reinforcing, and then I turn into the bad guy. Because one thing I don't want to be in any relationship is I don't want this to become adversarial between you and I. And I'm worried that this will become adversarial because I'm going to be telling you the same thing every week with the feedback. So that's the type of conversation that I want to have. And depending on how they respond to that conversation, then that would determine whether or not I move forward with them.
Right.
Is there circumstances where I won't move forward with someone? Yes, absolutely. But if I borrow from, Ray has talked on this point many, many times, there's key pieces to the relationship. There's price, there's term, and then there's fees, right? So if somebody says, well, I need this price that I don't think is achievable, and I don't want to give you a long runway to sell, and I want to talk about, lower fees. Well, then it's like, what are we doing here? Like, so you don't want to pay the value that I'm telling you I'm worth. You don't want to give me a long runway. And like, that doesn't make sense. But if somebody says like, hey, I think you're great. I'll commit to you for a long time. I just ask that, and I'll pay you what you want, but I just ask that we try this, and I'm in this for the long haul. I'll give you a long runway. And, if we need to adjust down the road, we adjust down the road. Well, that's a completely different conversation. And then what every agent is doing in that, not just real estate agents, what every business person is doing in those types of conversations is they're making a business decision in that they're saying, is this a relationship that I want to invest in and retain over the long term, right? Like that's the difference between thinking transactionally and thinking relationally. So if I meet someone who I don't know from a hole in the ground, but as I get to know them, I go like, this is a person that I want in my life long-term. And I know that it'll be a beneficial relationship long-term. Well, then I might make decisions in the short term that, maybe it means we're not going to sell right away, but it's, they respect me. I respect them. They're listening to what I have to say. That's different than ignoring what I have to say, second guessing me and telling me that I'm interpreting the information wrongly. I don't want to necessarily get involved in that type of relationship because I'm more like a commodity in that conversation, right? And you're like gasoline. Are you the most convenient and are you the cheapest? And are you giving me what I want? I don't want to be a commodity ever to anyone. But if I feel like I can build relationship with someone, then, do you make decisions that, would you take a listing to market at a higher number? Sure. If you think that there's a path forward that benefits both of you in the future.
Sweet.
These are all, like it's tough. I don't want to make it sound like it's easy. Like I am, when I discuss these things and I make statements like, we need to be better. I don't say that lightly. No, I'm not going like, I don't want to come across like I'm beating up our industry or the agents in our brokerage but I am calling us all to account, saying like, we need to be more accountable to ourselves. We need to be better. And if we are better and if we develop more skills, we can have an impact on these numbers every month.
Right.
That being said, I get how challenging it is. Every situation is different. Every person is different. And we navigate all of these circumstances, independently because each one is unique on its own.
Sweet. I was going to ask you though, I know we did subject sale last week, but I was just going to ask you, do you think that the public is as adverse to a subject to sale as agents? I was trying to think through, like, I don't know that the normal person trying to sell their home would think that there was anything wrong with the idea that somebody coming in might need to sell theirs first.
No, I think, so just as we are shifting our mindset, the public is reshifting their mindset. I mean, just think of what the shift that's gone on. If you go back to 22, like the public learned pretty quickly that like everyone learned you buy first.
Yeah.
We didn't like put out memos from BCREA and, and say, hey, everyone, this is the way it works. Yeah. They just learned. They were like, holy crap, if I want to buy a house, this is what I got to do. And I do this next. And was there some coaching that went on in that process with agents? Sure. But like,
do you think the public knew that though, as much as agents? Like, I'm not sure that
the public found out pretty quick, because when in that environment, if you wanted to move, and let's say you wanted to move from one place to another, the speed of the market was so quick. Everyone knew it was like place goes to market Wednesday, offers Monday, like whatever it was. There was no such thing as, forget about subject to sale. There wasn't even conditions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
like we had no conditions on the vast majority of contracts.
But that conversation starts at the agent though. It's not the seller coming in and knows that. Hey,
no. There was. It doesn't start at the agent. I mean,
you don't think so?
No, because everybody knew somebody who'd done 19. Like, I'm not saying the agents didn't have a role to play in that,
right? But
there was infinite amounts of stories that everybody would be able to recount where an agent gets a call from Bob, their friend, and they go, I want to move from this to this, and then you go to the meeting, you sit down at the dining table. And then when it comes up, how are we going to do this? It was assumed by many people that, well, we need, we need to buy first because we know that if we sell, we're homeless. And now the pressure's on to find something, and there's no guarantee. Like some people had to write 3, 4, 5 offers to buy something, right? Like they would lose in the process. So the public learned very quickly, because don't forget the sheer amount of transactions that occurred in that 2.5 year window. Everybody knew tons of people who had done it. So maybe earlier in 2020 or the fall 2020, was everyone on the program? No. But by the time you got halfway through into 21.
But that's also because there were so many transactions happening. Whereas now there aren't. So I'm curious, is the public as aware of a subject sale?
No. So today, are they as aware that this can happen successfully? Probably not. That's a good question. I don't know.
Agent? Like if you're meeting with the average person, are they aware that a subject sale maybe isn't what they want?
Well, I think what happens is there's conversations that aren't even happening. So I think there's people out there right now that, they see the state of the market, and then you combine that with the confidence and just the negativity, and they go, we're not going to give this a run.
Right.
But if they knew that they could go about it this way, would they give it a run? Yeah, they probably would. So I would say that's where it falls on agents to be initiating contact.
Right.
And this is what I talked about, a little bit in last week's podcast was, you had asked, well, what are you doing in the month of August? And I said, well, I print off my entire database because I like paper. I'm old fashioned, and I go through everybody in my database. And it's not that I've reached out to every single person this month, but I'm visually scanning going, who should I talk to? Like, who would be a possible beneficial conversation? Maybe wanting a market update. Maybe there's someone in their life that would benefit from a market update. And actually, so this is some encouraging news. We had an agent in our office phone me last week after that podcast dropped, and that person immediately started doing what we talked about. And they had a meeting immediately and encountered not one, but possibly 2 transactions that they're working on right now.
Awesome.
Purely from just calling through the database, which is like, we all know to do this, but we don't do it enough. But this thought process, these ideas reignited a flame in this individual and said, I need to do this. And one thing led to another. And there's 2 transactions. Like, I asked him, I said, hey, like if you didn't make this call,
was it going to happen?
Was it going to happen anyway? And he goes, well, I hadn't spoken to this person in like a long time. Like it wasn't someone that he had been in touch with recently. It was like years and years and years. And of course, there's a chance that it's not him. Right. There's a chance that it's somebody else. And what happened was he reached out to touch in and then, had a script that he had prepared in his mind, like, hey, I want to ask you about this or whatever. And then in this conversation that spilled out over the next 10, 15 minutes, like, it's not like when he phoned, the guy didn't go, oh, I'm so thankful you called.
Sure.
It was actually after about a 10 to 15 minute call on stuff that's just unrelated.
Which is good. Yeah.
The guy then said, hey, you know what? We've actually been thinking about this. I'm really glad we had this conversation. Can we circle back and have a meeting about doing this? And then that transpired just last week. And this week, this individual is now staring at 2 transactions that will come out of that conversation. So, you know,
I think
we have to do the things, right? Like we have to do everything. And here's one thing that is just certain. If we do nothing, we will just get the same.
Sure.
If we do everything, does everything work? No, everything doesn't work. Are we going to hit roadblocks? And yes, 100%. But there are absolutely people out there who, to your point, they don't know. They don't know what's possible, and they need to know what's possible. And there's actually great opportunities out there right now of properties they're good properties. They're just not priced properly, you know, but they're good properties. And those are the properties that are ideal targets for subject to sale transactions because they've been sitting there. They don't have any interest. Some of these properties might be willing to negotiate offers well below what they're asking. You don't know unless you try. But of course, you have to have a consumer who it would work well for, and you got to put all the pieces together. So use this month of August to make those calls and have those conversations. It takes work. It takes thought. It's not easy. But this is the business we're in. We're in sales. This is how we make a living and feed our families. We got to do it. And there's incredible opportunities out there if we have the right mindset amidst all of the challenges that we have.
You were saying that we brought up last week because I asked you, but I think it's probably going to be a relatively recurring theme, which is the idea of busy versus productive. Like, what are agents doing right now that is making them productive versus just saying that they're busy? Because everybody says they're busy. Yeah. And I had a conversation actually with another agent. This agent's not in our brokerage, it's somebody outside our brokerage. They messaged me and they said, hey, I've just started this. I don't want to give specifics, but he started this new marketing thing. Okay. And it's something that it's not database centric. It's, you know, spending money to be out there in the world to try to attract strangers to call you. And these are all good things, but I responded to the agent and I challenged this person immediately in a gentle, kind way. I said, you know, that's great, but what are you doing? Like, this person's been in the business already for a number of years. Like, do you have, like, when's the last day? Are you in touch with the people that already know you? The people that already know you is a gold mine of opportunities. And of course the answer was, well, no, I haven't done this and I haven't done that. Why do you think that is? Because it's so this is on you made me think of this because of the busy versus productive conversation. Like, if you buy, I don't know, a bus bench, or you send some flyers out, or you buy a billboard or whatever, anything like that, you can check a box and go like, I did something, right? And you did, you spent money, you went through design, something's out there, and you can feel good having done something. Now, it's also the easiest thing to do because doing any of those things avoids the most difficult thing in our industry, which is rejection. Right? We are in a business of rejection. And so I think that some of us can get pulled into those activities because the root behind it all is the fear of rejection. The reason a database-centric communication strategy and being in front of people and meeting with them and talking to them is so difficult is because, number one, we maybe don't believe that we have good value to offer. And that's maybe partially true because we maybe haven't put the thought and the time into it, right? So, like, you know, we've all seen the kind of stuff that we don't like. And if we don't want to send that stuff out or talk like that or emails like that or whatever, well, then we need to do something better. So that takes investment and work, right?
And then even when you do that, we're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of picking up the phone and calling a client and saying, hey, I haven't been in touch in a while and I want to talk to you about this, because the person might say, well, I don't want to talk to you.
Right.
Or why are you calling me? You never called me after I moved in, and now you're calling me now. Like, you know, we don't want to come across like so it's this like dance we play of like, okay, well, fair. Maybe that could happen. Mm-hmm. But if you never change the way you do things and you're never in touch with people, then you'll never get out of that. So I remember many years ago, like when I shifted my mindset around how I do things in the early years of my career, I didn't do that at all. Someone would move in, they would never hear from me again. Right. Like I was terrible off, like the worst. Transaction done, money made, boom, gone. You don't hear from me again. I did that for a long run. And when I was finally convinced to change, this was it was terrifying to think, because like, I'm going to call these people. They probably hate me. Right. And guess what? I changed the way I did things. I started communicating regularly. And yeah, I probably had, I don't know the numbers, but like there was probably, I don't know, a handful of people who either questioned why I was reaching out, didn't want to hear from me at all, immediately unsubscribed from any email list or whatever. And that's okay. Yep. They were gone. Yep. And then I knew it. But guess what? There was still, the vast majority of people were super appreciative that I was in touch. And then from that moment forward, I have stayed in touch consistently with, you know, birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas gifts, follow-up calls, you know, whatever. Like when somebody gets a call about an anniversary, like it's unbelievable. Yeah. And then when you do those types of things, you have the authority to call them and randomly in an August Wednesday say, hey, I thought of you. I don't know if this hits right now or what you guys are thinking, but I thought it'd be valuable if I gave you some of this information of what's been going on in the market. And maybe if it isn't even valuable for you, maybe there's someone in your life that it would be valuable for. So I've done a deep dive into what's been going on. I'm trying to find people who are in need of something and help them find opportunities. Is this something that would interest you to talk through for 20, 30 minutes? And if not, do you want to hear it in perhaps maybe someone in your life would want to hear it? Right. Like people just love that. They absolutely love that. And the reason we don't do it is because we haven't, and all of these fears that, you know, are very real. Like I know about those fears. Sure. I still have those fears. Yep. Like every day that I go pick up the phone, I have this hesitation. Like, is this going to be bothersome to them right now? But the more you do it, the easier it gets. And that is the gold mine of opportunity that we have in front of us. It's relationships.
You made a comment about having not talked to somebody in like a long time or whatever, and why are you sending this message? And they're wondering that. But obviously, we've talked to agents about using CRMs, and we love the use of CRMs and stay in some way in touch with your clients. But what would you be doing right now if you hadn't talked? You know, I know there's agents who are going to be, hey, I'm in that spot. I haven't talked to these people in like
what's
6
months, what's the first communication?
Yeah, what am I doing as that first hit?
So I would, there's a couple things you could do. That's a good question, because I think that's a very real thing. A summer update is a very easy, nonchalant. So you craft an email, and it's not overly long or wordy.
Like the video style like you've done, or would you
You don't even have to do a video if you don't want to do a video. If you want to avoid video, you could do an email with pictures. Right. So there's pictures of whatever you've been up to, something you've done. You've been to the winery, you went to the Okanagan, whatever. If you got family, it's personal. This is not business. This is not your business headshot. Yeah. This is photos of you and maybe your family out in the wild doing whatever you did over the summer. And the message of the email is just, hey, I'm been thinking of you this summer. I hope you've had an incredible summer. I know my family sure has, or I have. And then this is where you layer it in with some value. You go like, I'm not sure what your plans are for the next month, but if you haven't gotten to fill in the blank of where you went to, maybe it was some local winery, brewery, or whatever. Here's a shot of me and my family doing this. I highly recommend you check it out. And then there's a small blurb at the end of the email that says something like, it would be like, I'm encountering more and more folks who have questions about the unique real estate market we find ourselves in.
Right.
I'm going to be in touch. I'm going to be reaching out to you to see if there's anything I could answer, assist with, help shed light on. And then I hope you have an amazing.
Are you inviting them
summer
to reach out?
Well, yeah, they can call at any time, but I would even use that email as a thing to prep them to say that like you're going to be reaching out. And then from there, that email drops. Mm-hmm. And then the following week or two, you are in touch with your people, whatever that list is, whether that's 20 or 30 or 60 or 40 or whatever. And you can play with the wording. You can do that a number of different ways. But a summer update is like such an easy, non-invasive contact point.
Yeah.
You're not asking them for anything. You're not, you're not just sending them a bunch of stats. It's a personal touch. It's you, it's pictures of you, videos even better. Mm-hmm. But if you don't want to do video, just personal photos.
And that's your whole hope for that then is just like reopening that door and then making sure you're staying consistent after that.
And there's people out, like I say email and some people go, well, I don't want to email everybody. Like some people I do, like Canwar is incredible on WhatsApp. He uses different WhatsApp groups to communicate with people. I mean, you can WhatsApp people. That's
different if you have an ongoing communication with people. I think where a lot of people are probably stuck though is in that I haven't talked to this person in a long time. How do I get started with messaging them? Like that.
Totally. So you're doing that's how you start. And then, depending on your style and how your people communicate, you go from there, but that's the opener. Right. And then you use that as the opener. And then you're making the calls and the texts and however like some people, it's like, well, maybe it's appropriate to text this person and maybe it's appropriate to call that person. And maybe this person, I can message them through IG because they're on IG and we chat through IG or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So there's different ways to go about it, but you got to start.
Yeah.
And the easy way to start is a summer update. It's not easy. Like, if you haven't been in touch with people and then you think about just like bombing them with some stat-driven real estate related, there's never been a better time to buy message. Yeah. Well, is that kind of cringe? Sure, that can feel kind of cringe because you haven't earned the authority.
Right.
If you haven't been in touch with them, right? You don't have that authority, but you will earn that authority in time and then they will come to expect it from you.
Mm-hmm. Sweet.
So there you go.
We have Win the Week soon. So we don't have.
I got to get off.
So we have Win the Week will be pretty soon. I was going to ask you though, it was a funny sort of question, but what would you tell an agent to make sure they do by the end of tomorrow? If they were going to do something to work on their business, what would be something that is top of mind for you that this is important, that by tomorrow? Yeah. By tomorrow at noon, this is something an agent would be working on it.
Somebody very important to me many years ago, he was a mentor to me in a totally different business. He wasn't in real estate. Mm-hmm. He made a comment to me one time that stuck and he said, momentum is the most important thing in business. When you lose momentum, getting it back is the most difficult thing. But then when you're trying to restart, if you feel like you've lost momentum, what you need is small victories to gain momentum. Mm. And so right now, to answer your question, I would say momentum is everything. Well, how can you get momentum? You can have tiny, tiny little wins. A win could be between now and tomorrow, you are going to call 2 people. Mm-hmm. That's it. 2 people. But in calling 2 people, if you do those 2 things, you'll gain momentum. And then calling the 3rd and the 4th and the next day gets easier because you've done it. When we lose momentum, it's like this, like fear takes over our brains. It's almost like we think we just focus on the negative. We focus on what we don't have. And so recreating momentum is the biggest piece. And I would say like right now in summer, in August, finding small victories and finding momentum is the key to having a successful September and October. Mm-hmm. So this person shared this with me in the context, like he had some business challenges. He'd been in business for decades, right? Like successful guy, but like everyone else had been through highs and lows. And having gone through the low is probably when he shared this with me, and he was kind of on the back end of it. He just, his advice to me was never allow yourself to lose momentum. So even if you could be in a season where you're losing money, you're not making sales, like whatever, find a way to get momentum. Well, how do you get momentum? Small victories. Don't focus on the big. Don't go like, well, I need to have X amount of deals in or whatever. That's big. You got to think, what's the macro micro conversation? Micro is the smaller one, right? The small things that lead to that create positive feelings within, and it can have you feeling better about tomorrow and the next day. So tiny little things. Be in touch with one person,
right?
2 people. Something like whatever. I mean, maybe it's been years since you've worked on your, I don't know, a CMA or an email or whatever. But I would say, don't get distracted by the tasks that pull us away from relationship.
People,
It's kind of like, that agent I shared who talked to me about this new marketing thing he did. And I challenged him about, well, what have you done with your database?
Yep.
Be drawn into relationship, not away from relationship.
Nice.
And so find tiny little victories, and that'll give you momentum. And then when you have momentum, we start to feel better about life and about everything. And then everything gets easier. So you just got to get momentum.
Cool.
Tiny little things. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Thanks, brother.
See you next time.
Yep.